Hi friends, Jesus is my rock and that is how I roll. Welcome to another episode of California Preachin'. If you want that Jesus vibe, guys, you just gotta subscribe. Just push that little icon down there and push that little alert bell and you will get an alert every single time there's a brand new Cal Preach. What better God-versation could we have than to talk about the night that I slept in a cemetery? Yes, that is correct. And it all started with this wild, wacky, crazy weekend that I had. I had like a band of girls that I used to hang out with. You know, we were not doing good things. We were drinking, we were smoking. Yeah, it was bad. But we all kind of were each other's family. We all really stuck together and we really were the best of friends, even though we were high as a kite. I remember this one particular weekend, we went to my uncle's house, pretty well off, and he had this awesome pool on the beach. And I just thought, well, I'm gonna bring all my girlfriends and we're just gonna have this amazing weekend together. We got to Malibu and, we just took off all our clothes, jumped in the pool. My uncle was out of town, so we could all just skinny dip. And we had stopped at the liquor store and we'd gotten some booze and we were just having the time of our life. One of my friends said, hey, we should, score some cocaine. And I was like, oh yeah, but we don't have the money. And she said, well, your uncle must have the money. Why don't you go into the house and see if you can find some cash somewhere? And I felt really uncomfortable with that idea because I really loved my uncle and I didn't want to take advantage of him, and I already had my friends here and he'd given us permission to come and swim. Peer pressure took over and I went into the house and I went into his closet and I started looking around and rummaging for money, drugs, whatever I could get my hands on. So it didn't take me long to open this particular drawer, and inside there were $100 bills in like a money clip, and there were little bags with white powder, which I assumed were cocaine. It was basically a jackpot. And there was even this t-shirt in his closet that was the Blues Brothers, and I knew it was like a classic, one of a kind. So much for my morals and my values. I snagged the shirt, took some pot, I took a couple $100, and I took probably half of the white powder in there because I tasted it and realized it was cocaine. Then I went back downstairs and I had this really dirty, guilty, yucky feeling in my body. But like I said, peer pressure had kicked in. I just didn't want to let everybody down. So I did something really wrong, really horrible, and I stole from my own uncle. But anybody who does drugs and alcohol know that, or have in the past, know that you can stoop to pretty low levels when you're dealing with drug addiction. The party started and we just got the booze, we got the coke, we got the pot, we had some money now. And so we decided, after we spent some time swimming and taking a beach walk and doing some drugs and smoking cigarettes and all of that we were going to go to Westwood. We used to go there barefoot. I know that sounds so disgusting. Like now I think about it and I'm like, oh, that's so gross. But we thought shoes were just really uncool. So we decided to meet up with these guys that we knew, relatively well. So we went to this park and we kind of showed off that we had drugs and alcohol and money, and they were like, wow, that's cool. Like, can we party with you guys? And we were like, yeah, of course. So all of us just kind of like did lines on the table. So, I forgot to mention how old I was. 16? Yeah, I was about 16. I ended up getting sober when I was 19, but I was about 16 at the time of this story. So we do some lines, and the boys didn't mention to us that they had just shoplifted from some huge department store and that there were police after them. And so all of a sudden we hear, is that the sound? Sirens. Then we see 4 cop cars like screech up to the park, and I was like, oh no, I am out. So I grabbed what I could, put it in my pockets. Everyone just ran in separate directions, and I remember I was just so terrified because I knew I was the one who had the drugs on her. We ended up going to the graveyard. Yeah, I think that's where the boys used to go to party, was the graveyard. By this time it was starting to get dark. One of the guys was sporting a tent in his backpack. And so he proceeds to, pitch this tent, and it's quite large. I mean, I was pretty impressed with his graveyard tent, I have to say. We got into the tent and we realized we had no food, we had no water, and we were all starving. And there was a Carl's Jr. around the corner. I was the one with the money, so I took the order and We brought back just boxes of burgers and fries and shakes and you name it. So anyways, we get to the graveyard and we're all eating. And so one of the guys is like really coming on to me. And this was one of the guys that I actually didn't know as well as I knew the others. And he was definitely cute, but I just didn't know back then how to say like, no, I don't want to do this. No, thank you. So nightfall comes and the boys start talking about playing hide and go seek in the graveyard in the middle of the night. And I'm really freaked out. I am like, I don't like this idea. This is really scary. But again, peer pressure. And they were like, you're going to do it with us, right? And I was like, yeah, of course. So we play this like very, very scary game of hide and go seek in the graveyard. And the boys are like hiding behind gravestones. And then if you get close, they're going, ah! It was terrifying. We all decided to call it, a night. We'd run out of cocaine. We'd run out of pot. We had run out of booze. We get into the tent and this dude, I can't even remember his name. He got into the tent with me. We were all in the tent, but he just snuggled up right close to me. And I knew where this was headed and I was not happy about it. Suddenly I hear my friend crying and I was like, oh my gosh, no, what is going on? So I was just like, Lindsay, why are you crying? She just said, I really don't want to sleep here. I'm really scared. I do not want to sleep here. I want to go home. I gave her like $15 and she jumped the fence of the graveyard and I wanted to go with her so bad. But you see, this is where my inability to take care of myself, my inability to have a voice, my inability to stand up for myself and just take care of myself. I did not have that strength. By that time, it was already like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't want to like try and sneak into my house. And sure enough, this kid, I have no idea who he was, started making some moves on me. He basically had his way with me. I'm sure everybody else knew what was going on, but it was all just so gross and so uncomfortable and so dark. I couldn't wait for the sun to come up, and I didn't sleep the entire night. I was praying that a cop was gonna come and was gonna say like, you guys, what are you doing? You can't sleep here. That didn't happen. I just ended up going home first thing in the morning, no shoes, hungover, completely exhausted. And obviously my primary feeling was I just got completely taken advantage of. But yet I blamed myself. I felt like, well, I didn't say no and I slept next to him. I didn't move spots. And, I know so many people can probably identify with this unfortunate, very sad story. I ended up taking the bus, I remember the 8, Ocean Park, back down to my house, and I walked the 3, miles, whatever it was, maybe it was 2, to get home. My mom was sitting on the front porch when I walked up, and it couldn't have been more than 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe even 8 o'clock in the morning. She just looked at me and she said, where have you been? And I said, it's kind of a long story and I'm really tired. And she said, I don't care how tired you are. I think there might have been an extra word in there that I can't say. Yeah, she was not pleased. And I was so actually moved and touched by the idea that my mom had waited for me on the front porch. It was so not out of character, well, maybe a little bit. She'd never done that before. And I remember feeling loved. And I kind of held on to that when I raised my own kids. Like, oh, wow, kids pretend like they're so upset with you for tracking them, or the kids get so upset, when you tell them to be home at a certain time, or if you're not home at a certain time, they call you, they drive around town looking for you. Yeah, kids will put up a stink about it, but really deep down inside, it makes them feel good because they know that they're loved and they're cared for. So I was actually secretly very touched by that. Mom, if you're watching, thank you for waiting up for me when I slept in the graveyard. So she wanted to hear the story. Of course, I only told her a fraction of the story. I did not tell her the entirety of the story because I knew that I would be in big, 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 big trouble. Well, about 48 hours later, my mom called me up to her room and she said, China, I need to talk to you about something, and I want you to tell me the truth. She said, China, did you steal money and some drugs from your uncle? My initial reaction was to lie. I knew that there was really no getting out of it. And I knew that if I blamed one of my other friends for doing it, that I would lose some friends, because obviously that was not the truth. So I just took a big deep breath, and then I just burst out into tears, and I said, Mom, I did, and I ended up having like a really, really horrible weekend, and I shared with her everything, and you know, she was very sweet about it, but she was like, you are gonna pay him back every single cent. And I did end up paying him back, and I had to write him, you know, a written apology. And then of course, every time I saw him, it was like, you know, so many things could have gone so much worse that night. I mean, it really could have. I mean, maybe not to some people, like that's pretty bad, China, but really, honestly, I could have been killed. I could have overdosed. So I'm just grateful that I'm alive, you know, and I have all these stories to tell. There are so many. I have archives of stories to tell you guys from my youth. And I'm not proud of my stories. The reason I tell my stories is because I think that when I don't share my history with people, I have a tendency to feel like damaged goods. I have a tendency to feel like I'm the only one. I'm a bad person. And yet I've come so far. And like I said, I got sober when I was 19. But ultimately, there are so many things that led me to God and led me to where I am today. And I think that even in my darkest moments, God was watching me and always had a plan for my life. So I'm very grateful for that. I always loved that Jesus didn't come in to this world, you know, wearing jewels and robes and crowns and, you know, he didn't come in on some strong horse. He didn't come in as like the judge. He came in weak so that he could bear our judgment. I think sometimes I'm such a critic. I judge myself so much. And so for me to accept and believe that my Savior, my King, bore all of our sin and all of our human weakness so that we could be saved eternally is just so beautiful. I just have to keep reminding myself day in and day out that salvation is not achieved, it's received. My stories are sort of a perfect example of how, you know, the devil had a hold on me, and then I came to Jesus, or Jesus came to me. I love this Charles Spurgeon quote, consider how precious one's soul must be if both God and the devil are after it. So just keep that in mind today if you're judging yourself, or if you're going through a really hard time and you're making stupid mistakes. Life is challenging, you guys. None of us are gonna get out of here having figured it all out. So I'm gonna go easy on myself today, and I'm just gonna thank God for saving my life and saving that little girl who was just on the road to destruction. And I hope that you'll do the same, because I know a lot of you have similar stories, maybe not graveyard and stealing from your uncle, but similar stories. It's really all about having grace, because Jesus is having grace with you and practicing grace with you on a moment-to-moment basis. So please practice grace for yourself. And remember that the grass is not always greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. I love you guys. Peace of Christ. Just wanted to remind you guys that California Healing will be starting soon. It's going to be a really special time of bonding and sharing and praising and worshiping, getting closer to God and getting closer to one another. I just know you're not going to want to miss out on this really intimate, very healing experience. And yeah, I'm going to let you guys know when we are ready to sign up. Hi, my sweet Bible babes. This is the China and Vaughn CD. This CD is Holy Spirit activated. It was completely downloaded from heaven. I will sign it for you, and you can get it at californiapreachin.com. Don't miss out. All right, let's go. Hey friends, if this video blessed you in any way, I pray that you will subscribe and that you will press that little bell, because that little bell will give you an alert every single time there's a brand new Cal Preach. And remember, sharing is caring. You never know who's going to find the peace of Christ.